Captain Reyna Solaris was the face of the New World, cool, decisive, loyal to the code of world order. Under her command, the Alpha Fleet regulated zones of cosmic stability, suppressed interstellar conflicts, closed rifts in the fabric of space. She made no mistakes, ever. And then silence. All protocols were violated. Reyna activated an ancient beacon from the Third Great Contact, a forbidden technology that responded to extraterrestrial fields. The response came instantly. An unknown vessel materialized in orbit around Venzora 2, a long-abandoned moon where the first-wave colonies had once disappeared. There were no airlocks, no signs, no windows on its surface. It looked like a clot of shadow, pulsating with living light. There was silence inside, and memory. Reyna found her daughter's toy drone hanging in a gravity trap. Its mechanical voice kept repeating, "They are looking for the name that knows no sound." The captain begins her own investigation, ignoring the council's orders. She turns to the ancient worlds where the exiles live, the silent archives, and learns of a race known only as the Silent Ark. These beings do not speak, do not write, do not transmit thoughts. They steal the potential of words, children whose consciousness can change the very flow of language. Lynn is one of them, and now, to save her daughter, Reyna must enter the silent space, the dead zone where sound is impossible, where thoughts can be stolen, and where every word is the last. Sector MX-13, Forbidden Zone. The map labels it as a dead spot. No signal, no time. Even the AI can't track where space ends and something else begins. Captain Solaris enters there alone. Her ship is the Anagram, a modified capsule capable of isolating thoughts from external psychoradiation. The development was closed after the incident on Proteus 6, where the entire crew of the ship began to speak simultaneously in different languages, all dead. It is believed that they heard the word without echo. Reyna didn't believe in legends until she heard Lynn's voice in the silence. Third day without communication. Inside the void, time crumbles like ice under pressure. Space is distorted, like a reflection in inky water. Reyna feels someone watching, not with eyes, but with something ancient, structural. She hears not words, but sensations, as if someone's thoughts are touching her mind through a layer of cotton wool. You are not her mother. You are her gate. Reyna yanks out the interface cable. Her brain begins to frantically build protective barriers. This is not telepathy. This is an attempt to replace her thinking with another pattern. She finds them. In the center of the void, a structure hovers. Not a station, not a ship, but something resembling a vast burning tree of stars and debris. In its branches are cocoons, dozens, maybe hundreds. She sees Lynn, alive, asleep. Around her is a shimmering outline of clots of light pulsing like a nervous system. The creatures emerge from the shadows. They have no form, just outlines floating in the darkness. When Reyna looks at them, she hears in her head, the name. She carries it. It can awaken the light, and you are the bearer of order. It destroys the name. Reyna takes out the pulse core. Threat. Understood. If you destroy us, the name will die. It lives only in the transition. Accept it or leave. Reyna hesitates. To shoot would be to lose her daughter, but to accept would be to let in something alien, something that might destroy all of humanity. And then she realizes, this is not a kidnapping. This is an initiation. Lynn is not a victim. She is connected to the Silent Ark. They are not enemies. They are heirs of the word. Reyna slowly lowers the cannonball, and then Lynn opens his eyes, looks at her, and he says, "You were always strong, Mom. Now be quiet. Light absorbs everything." When Reyna opened her eyes, she was no longer in a silent space. She was lying on the floor of her cabin on the Anagram. The ship drifted quietly in ordinary space, but everything around was different. Space felt like every part of it held someone's breath. Lynn was sitting next to her, calm, smiling, looking at her mother with eyes that no longer had human color, only reflections of stars. "They let us go?" Reyna whispered. Lynn shook her head. "We are them now, just be quieter." On Earth, those who returned were greeted as heroes. But already in the first hours it became clear something went wrong. The decryption service couldn't decipher a single report from the ship. Text logs, audio recordings, everything turned into meaningless, shimmering sequences that gave the operators headaches and obsessive dreams. Reyna attempted to convey a warning to the council, but every word she spoke sounded hollow, as if her tongue could no longer carry meaning. Lynn was silent, just looking at the sky. Sometimes her lips moved, and birds fell from the sky. Day 3, the council isolated Reyna and Lynn. Digital systems stopped working with them. Doors wouldn't open. Recordings were erased. Screens distorted faces. Strange glitches accumulated around them. Algorithms began to write poetry. Drones drew symbols that did not exist in any font. Psychoneticists call this the dark resonance effect. But Reyna knew that this name, awakened in Lynn, was beginning to penetrate reality. Night, underground complex. An emissary from the council, Agent Ter Moral, comes to Reyna, his eyes not blinking at all. He holds an energy blade in his hands. "You are no longer human," he says. "You are a vector. We will not let this infect our language, our structure, our order." But before he takes a step, Lynn looks up. She doesn't speak, but he starts crying, with blood, and lowers the weapon. "They're inside me," Lynn whispers, almost tenderly. "But I still remember you singing to me through the porthole. They can't take that away. Not yet." Now Reyna knows. The name without sound awakens. It is a living code, older than the universe itself. It can grant freedom, but it can also destroy the structure of reality. And only she, a person, a mother, a soldier, is capable of making a choice. Destroy the name, even if it means losing her daughter, or let it spread and change the nature of consciousness forever. But perhaps there is a third way, one that even the entities of the Silent Ark do not know about. She is not sleeping. Since the Silent Ark touched her thoughts, sleep has disappeared. Now there are whispers in its place. Not with ears, not with words, but in the fabric of perception itself. Sometimes Lynn feels the space breathing. Sometimes she feels it afraid. But as long as she is with her mother, the silence does not hurt. Around her, everything remains almost real, almost like childhood. She remembers the first time she heard the name. It was not a sound, not a sign. It was a sigh from the universe, falling into her mind like a drop into water. And from this drop circles appeared. She suddenly knew how the void thought, how stars choose where to burn, how the shadows between words become alive. And most importantly, she knew that the name could be passed on, but not with words, but with something else. Something that only children can do until they forget how to see the truth in games. You are the key. You are the note that cannot be played but can be remembered. Those who were inside her said this. Not the evil ones. Not the good ones, just different. They don't need to destroy people. They need to remember through people what was once lost, the ancient single language. The name without sound is not a weapon. This is an opportunity to rewrite the fabric of reality, to make it alive again, not frozen in codes and orders. But there is also the shadow, a creature that remains in the void. It remembers the name, but hates it, because it once had a soul. And now it is only an echo. It's coming. It feels like Lynn has been silent for too long, that she holds the name inside and does not give it up. Lynn sits next to her mother in a locked capsule. In her fingers is a toy drone. It is silent now. "Mom," she says quietly, "if I disappear, will you still remember me?" Reyna hugs her, not knowing what to say, because even memory is now in question. The shadow can erase even that. "We will find a way out, Lynn, together." And at that moment, Lynn feels something burst forth from the depths of the void. It is approaching. It is coming to sever the bond between mother and daughter, once and for all. The shadow of the name, a being without form, without a center. It speaks through others. It wants to become the only carrier by destroying all others, because the name gives freedom, and freedom is a threat. Now Lynn has no time, and she has a choice. Reveal the name, awaken all the children on the planet, and thereby destroy the order as it is, or burn the name within herself, keep the peace, but lose touch with who she has now become. But maybe a third way is still possible. If Mom remembers the first lullaby she sang out the window, words not recorded in any library, words that are her own name, the night was not real. They were in the zero-code dome, deep beneath the Arctic ice. Isolation, protective fields, cut-off protocols, but none of it mattered anymore, because the shadow was already inside. "She's coming," Lynn said, "but she's not alone, she's leading me." Raina squeezed her daughter's hand tighter. "No, she wants to take you." Lynn smiled, sadly. "She was me too, once upon a time." The light in the corridors went out. The metal began to breathe. The walls were covered with symbols that didn't just glow, they were felt. Raina saw them and heard music that didn't exist. It came out of the wall, an immense mass of darkness, as if forged from all the unspoken words, from pain, from refusals, from the silence before parting. A face made up of many faces, and the voice is not a sound but a question that tears the fabric of the mind. "Will you give it to me?" Raina stepped forward, between Shadow and Lynn. "She is not yours, she is my daughter." And then the shadow entered her. In an instant, Raina was not in the complex, not in the body, and in the space of thought. Mirror emptiness, the sound of steps that are not hers. The symbols rotate like planets. In the center is the past she has forgotten. She sees herself, young, running away from the academy, holding the forbidden first contact records, seeing her first thoughts of having a child, how she gives her daughter a name, not Lynn, but one she never pronounced. You didn't protect her, you hid the name, but that name wants to breathe. This is Shadow speaking, but with Raina's own voice. She begins to understand. The shadow is not an enemy. It's a remnant of her fear, her rejection, her pain. When she gave her daughter a name, she sealed away not only her power, but her own. Now to win, Raina must do the impossible. Pronounce the daughter's real name, the very one that she kept in her heart. But if she does, the name will awaken fully. It will no longer belong to Lynn. It will become a living word. It will touch the entire civilization. And at that moment, in the center of the mental world, Raina sings. The same lullaby that she whispered to her daughter while looking out the window. A song without words, just rhythm, just breathing, just memory. And in this breath the name sounds. The shadow screamed a silent scream. Space broke apart. The emptiness has disappeared. The name was spoken. But it didn't destroy, it revived. Raina woke up. The entire station was asleep. But children, all over the world, children began to sing, without words, in unison, the same melody. And when the old protocols tried to stop them, the code in the system started to change. Not to break, but to change. The order was cracking. But in this crack, something new was born. Lynn stood up. She approached her mother. "You said my name," she whispered. "And now it's not just mine anymore. It's theirs. Those who don't yet know how to speak." Raina smiled. "Then let's teach them." They called it word contagion. The Council of World Order met in complete silence on an orbital platform outside the Earth's atmosphere. Everything transmitted from the planet violated protocols. The AIs went crazy. Children wrote signs on the walls, unknowingly activating fields of perception that were previously thought impossible. And it all started with one girl, with Lynn. "If the name spreads," the chief archivist said, "we will lose control. We will lose the very structure of thought. People will cease to be people. Or maybe, on the contrary, they will become what they were meant to be," Raina answered in shadow, standing in front of the council holograms. There was more than meaning in her voice now. It was felt. Shifts have begun on the planet. Children, in all countries, began to speak to each other without language. Not telepathy, not magic. It was a new form of intent, touching with meaning. Vibration of thought formed into feelings. They no longer needed words to understand. And this scared the adults. It scared those who built systems from orders, laws, filters, and lies. The council began Operation Antos, a mass suppression of the bearers of the name. They used echo modules, devices that destroy semantic resonance. The station on Triton was the first to suffer. The children stopped talking, then they stopped moving, then they disappeared. Officially, it's a virus. In fact, it is the strangulation of a new language. Reyna and Lynn went underground, sheltered by those once called madmen, the poets of the void, the keepers of whispers, the forgotten linguists of the ancient structures. Among them was one, Saria, a woman who had heard the voice of the name as a child but had survived. She said, "The name does not want to be destroyed, it wants to sing. But for this, we must let go of language as a weapon, as a chain, as an order." And Reyna began to prepare. To the last step, she gathered the children, all that she could find. Each of them knew part of the name, but only together could they fulfill it, completely. It wasn't a song, it wasn't a speech. It was the creation of reality through meaning. The council was already flying towards them. Warships, jammers, control algorithms. Everything is ready for the final blow. But the children stood in a circle, and they began to remember, not events, but feelings, dreams, images. And then Reyna realized, a name is not a sound. A name is a memory joined by love. And she did the last thing, opened her mind, allowed the name to pass through her, through all her fears, and it sounded in space, not loudly, but so that everything stopped. The ships froze. The algorithms have been reset. The officers cried without understanding why, and down below, on the ground, the children taught each other to sing reality anew. The ship they sailed on had no name, because any name given to him immediately began to change the shape of the ship. He obeyed the word. He was a response. Kia, a creature of water and light, was the first to suggest a name. Zolai. It means where the meaning still sleeps. And the ship became like a huge shell, in the center of which the heart of light pulsated. Thus began their journey to the heart of Enance. Seth was silent. He spoke not with sounds, but with bends of gravity. When he thought, the metal began to sing. His planet had long since disappeared into the volume of a black hole, and now he was the only bearer of a fragment of the ancient name that remained to them as a memory. "A name is not a gift," he once told Lynn. "It is a responsibility, because everyone who hears it changes, and not everyone wants to change." Laom was strange. He looked like a walking pattern, as if his body were made of lines that moved independently. He was a program that had lived within the structure of a dying star, and now he carried a fragment of the word implanted in him by the Entons, the last speakers of Constellation N. Laom did not distinguish between I and we. For him, the name was like a choir, and he was always waiting. Her return. Who? No one knew, not even he himself. The journey was long. They passed through the nebula of silence where even thoughts became silent. Through the planet Kavira, where a race lives that can cut words, turning them into weapons. Through the archive of word forms, where ancient peoples hid what could not be pronounced. And now, finally, they approached the coordinates found in the depths of Lynn. But N's heart turned out to be dead. An ancient structure, the size of a continent, hovered in the void, covered in a crust of stone and time. They came in, and everything changed. There were no mechanisms inside. There was no technology. There were only notes made not in ink, but in memories inscribed into the fabric of space. As Lynn walked through the hall, the walls came alive, and she saw thousands of voices, races, civilizations, souls who had once tried to speak the word all at once. They were destroyed, not by war. They dissolved into the name because they could not hold their form when the truth sounded to the end. And then Lynn realized, Source N is not a point, not the center, not the core. He is a song that cannot be sung alone, only in the choir, only together. But by the time she realized it, they were attacked by the Council of Order. The ships of the old era emerged from subspace, surrounding the heart of N. At their head is Admiral Quarius, obsessed with preserving the old world. You brought the virus of meaning. You are a mistake. We will cleanse the fabric. It activates the erasing formula. If it works, the word will disappear. Lynn will die. The name will be lost. And everything will return to silence. But at that moment, Kia Seth, Laom, and Reyna, they sing. Each one is its own fragment, not a perfect name, but alive. Lynn hears them, and for the first time, sings in response. In's heart lights up. The word awakens, but not as a sound, like a new fabric of reality. The formula of erasure collapses, unable to penetrate what has already become not just meaning, but life. Lynn raises her hand, speaks. The name is not mine, it is yours. Everyone who is ready to hear and be heard. And at that moment, even the enemy ships begin to sing. The word spread. Now it is in the fabric of ships, in the voices of children, in the lines of highways. It has become dangerous to speak because every word changes reality. Some heal, some open portals, and some make the void come alive. Lynn and her team call it the transition. The world has not only changed, it has ceased to be defined. Now everyone carries their own note in the choir, and this note determines what the space around will be like. But not everyone sings with the true word. Somewhere in the depths of subspace, on a sunken station called Xena Beta, the council was conducting its final experiments. They collected fragments of the name heard in recordings intercepted from the void. They tried to recreate the word, but did not understand its essence. Thus was born the false name. It looks like the word. It sounds the same. It also makes matter tremble. But there is emptiness in it, not filled, but rotting. When it is pronounced, the forms freeze. The mind becomes a mirror reflecting someone else's will. It doesn't give meaning. It gives control. The first person to know about this was Seth. He felt something in gravity become fragile. The ship Zol-I began to fall apart into symbols, and then to come back together, but differently. Someone is playing with the reflection of the word, he said. And if it breaks through, the world will turn into a labyrinth of echoes. Laom sounded the alarm. The one he was waiting for, her, began to return, but not in the form he remembered. She carried the trail of the false name. Lynn and Reyna realized the name can be sung. You can forget, but now it can be faked. And if the true word builds bridges, then the false creates prisons. They are heading to Xena Beta, sunken station, immersed in the black ice of oblivion. Everyone who tried to speak there fell silent forever. Inside are halls filled with frozen voices, crystals of sound, scraps of thought, and right in the center is she, Sayana, the first of those who heard the name and rejected it. She was once a singer of light, now she who writes without meaning. Sayana looks at Lynn. You gave them your word. I gave them structure. You gave them prison. I gave them protection from chaos. And between them is the battle of names. Not a war, not a weapon. Song against song, vibration against vibration. True name versus false name. Words collide. The material is cracking. Space is twisted into knots. Lynn is on the edge. If she loses, the name will become just an instrument of power. If he wins, the name will become a common choir, and no one will be able to own it alone. And then a voice sounds, quiet, from the depths of Laom. She's back, but she's not the same. I remember her real note. Give me a chance to sing it again. Laom takes a step. His lines begin to tremble. He sings, for the first time with one voice. And suddenly false name starts crying. Xena Beta Station shook, not from the explosions, from internal resonance. Two songs, true name and false name, collided like two oceans. Space was torn, but did not collapse. It listened. Sayana stood in the center of the mirror word circle. Her body is made of glass phrases. Her voice is like a command line executed by the universe. She looked at Laom, the creature of patterns she had once created. Yes, he was hers. You were the first one who sang for me, she said, and now you sing against me. Laom did not answer with words. He began to sing. It wasn't a challenge, and not a refusal. It was a song of remembrance, a song about how Sayana once stood under the light of a fading star and sang so as not to forget her people, about how she once lost her brother's name and came up with Laoma as his reflection, about how she feared oblivion and created a false name to protect herself from the truth. Sayana shuddered, her outlines becoming blurry. Laoma's song did not fight, it remembered, and in these memories she saw her true self, the way it was before fear, before power, before loss. I didn't know, she whispered. Lynn came closer. "This is not the end," she said. "This can be a new note." And then Raina, Seth, Kia, they all started singing, not in chorus, each in their own way. Each is part of the overall meaning. The false name has not disappeared. It has been transformed. It became not dangerous, but understandable. Pain that can be shared. Fear that can be embraced. In a word that no longer hurts, but heals. Anna dropped to her knees. A word escaped her lips, the first real one in thousands of years. Laum. He came up, and he whispered quietly, "I've always been here." In the silence of Xena Beta, a new form of the word was born. Not a name, not an order. And the consonants. Now it travels not through wires, but through hearts. The world no longer depends on one center. The word became alive, free, and in the final scene, the ship Zolai moves on into an uninhabited constellation where no one has spoken for millions of years. Lynn sits down at the panel. In her hands is not a map, but a note. New, just born. "Who knows," she says. "Maybe we're not the first. Maybe someone somewhere has already sung this before us." Raina smiles. "Or maybe we are the first line of a new universe." And the ship goes into the transition. The song civilization has become a reality. The word, alive, pulsating, responding to feelings, to memory, to love, has become the basis of communication. Language no longer divides but connects. Children are born with a response. They can not only speak but resonate. The cities sing. Ships dance with the wind of meaning. Religions have become choral houses where there are no more gods, only listeners and those who sound. But there are places where the word does not sound at all. They are called void nodes, sectors where the name disappears, where children are born deaf to the song, where darkness is not just the absence of light, but the absence of response. The Council of Choirs assembled an expedition, not the army, and a group of singer explorers ready to go where there is no sound. At the head is Ia, a young man with a rare ability. It does not have its own resonance, but is capable of sensing someone else's, amplifying it, just as a mirror amplifies light. They call him the deaf light. You cannot hear the song, they tell him, but you can reflect it where no one can hear. You are their only chance. Along with him come. Miral is the bearer of the memories of the ancient song, a descendant of Lynn herself. Her voice can awaken the crystals of the past. Star is an alien from a race whose speech is based not on sound but on color. He speaks with his eyes, and his language can revive dead structures. Yuno is an AI once cut off from the song but now retrained. He searches for his name. Their target is Node 0, an old lighthouse in the nebula outside the song space. He doesn't give a signal, but according to rumors, someone is alive in it, and perhaps something else sings. First contact. When they enter the node area, the ship becomes silent. Words lose their meaning. Gravity fluctuates like a broken metronome. And in the darkness there sounds an echo, but not them. It is a voice similar to the word, but the opposite of it. You gave freedom to the word. Now we will show what his absence means. I feels a silence awakening within him, but not scary. Waiting, watching. For the first time he speaks, in a voice that is not his own, and the void answers. The ship retinance hovers in silence. The energy fields tremble, but not from tension, but from lack of response. All systems are working. All devices are silent. The word doesn't sound. AE stands in the front capsule. He looks at the Node 0 beacon. Once part of the old world order, it is now encrusted with crystals of alien matter. They pulse, but not to the rhythm of the song. He says, "Listen to me." And in response, only an echo, but distorted, like someone else's imprint of his voice. "Why are you trying to name us if we never had a name?" Miral touches the wall. Her fingers are singers. She sends into the structure the memory of Lynn, the moment of the awakening of the word, the first song sung by the choir. But the node crystals react differently. They cry. They give out images of pain, loss, distorted joy. Star tries to reflect this with light. His eyes pulse with colors. But the structure only responds to black. Yuno tries to decipher the signals. He finds a recording, not audio. A thought left in the void. We were before the word. We sang, but no one heard. Then we fell silent. and became that which does not sound. And now you have returned with a new song, again, not for us. Ai feels a pang in her chest. These entities are not enemies. They are the forgotten ones, once they had something of their own. But the song, having become global, did not include them, because they didn't know how to speak, only how to be. And now they are those who had no name. They are called in the shadows, echoes, not bodies, not souls. Rather, they are the residual structures of beings that were cut out of the word. They are not asking for war. They ask, find a song we can be in too. But the problem is He does not wear the song, but he reflects it. And it is he who can give a name to those who have never had one, not by imposing, but by responding. A word that is not born in the voice, and in the silence between the sounds. He sits down on the floor of the station, closes his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he sings not out loud. He doesn't know what it sounds like. He only thinks about presence, about being close, about listening without form. And the darkness answers. Not a song, not an echo, by agreement. A crystal appears in the center of the station. It doesn't sound. It is unpublished, but alive. Yuno says, this is not a name. This is an opportunity for the name to appear. Miral smiles through her tears. We found a language, up to the language. Ai turns around. There is no emptiness around. There is silence all around, ready to become a song, from scratch, with everyone. There is peace at Node Zero Station. The echoes are no longer hiding. They don't come out, but now they feel that they are being heard. Ai stands in front of the crystal. He doesn't know what to say, because speech here is useless. But he knows, here in this silence, a new language can be born. Miral goes deeper into the station. She finds an artifact, a tablet without symbols, made of solid, empty stone. The echoes touch her. The first sign appears on its surface, simple, crooked. It means, we are here. Yuno retains this form. It defies analysis. It's not a code, it's a presence. Star silently draws a second sign next to it, and we are close. And the song begins. But at that moment, the last name appears. Not what is created by the word, and that which fed on fear of him. An entity from the deep rift, a black mirror born during first contact. It called itself Bezvozglaz. This is not an antagonist. This is a remnant of the old world. A fragment of those who wanted silence to be dead, not alive. You gave the name to those who had none. So you are the sources of distortion. I am the correction. The voiceless one does not attack. He erases. Words, images, feelings disappear in his presence. Ai begins to forget who he is. Miral forgets the song. Yuno loses his eye. And then Ai sings silence. Not a sound, not a name, and a silent agreement to be there. The echoes respond. They don't sing, but they remember themselves. And Bezvozglaz, for the first time in history, cannot reflect this. He is not destroyed. He has been released, absorbed in something he didn't understand. Quiet acceptance. The crystal pulsates. Signs appear on it. Not letters, not thoughts, but gestures of light. And everyone at the station feels, this is not a name. This is the agreement to be, and that is enough. Centuries passed. Now, it's not just songs that are heard in cities. There are pauses. They are taught in schools, to be silent in order to be heard. A new order has emerged, not a centralized one. Every being carries within itself its own name, and the possibility of not having it. The echoes are no longer hiding. They build their own spaces, and they call them empty temples. But in these temples, the deepest vibrations of the world sound. Ai went into silence. He became the pass, the one through which the word passes before becoming pure. They sing little about him. More often than not, they remember. And this is his song.